Larry Janesky, you've done a lot of things. I've researched you a good bit. I've asked about different things you've done. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, great to be here. Happy to share.
I uh I've learned about you have patents, you started in the trades, you have Contractor Nation, you enduro dirt. Is it mainly dirt? It's all dirt bike, right? Enduro racing, or do you do other racing?
I'm in the side by side now mostly.
Oh, nice.
So it was dirt bikes for a lot of years. I still ride dirt bikes, but yeah, long distance desert racing.
500 miles.
Yeah, 1,000. Coming up in a couple of weeks, Saudi Arabia. It's the Dakar Rally. It's 14 days, 6,500 miles. It's crazy. But it's a challenge. So I'm up for the challenge.
I like that. We talked briefly about people's why and why they do things. And some of it can be fun things. They want to do X, Y, Z fun thing. But I was thinking about that kind of enduro racing. And I grew up riding dirt bikes as well. And how that would be I know that it's a grueling, tough thing. And watching some of your videos online about the experience that you've had, what are the kind of parallels or similarities to those types of races and just being an entrepreneur in general? Like, do you see any parallels? Does it help you? Does it help you push through? What are some similarities between those two things?
Yeah, that's an important subject is why, So what I do is I'm a contractor. I've been a contractor since I was 17 years old. I built my first house when I was 18 years old. General contracted, was a framer, roofer, siding, windows and doors and building houses and then, general contracting and doing those things. For 5 years, built 23 houses by the time I was 23 years old. And then the market collapsed and I had to find something else to do. I couldn't, houses weren't selling anymore. It's 1987. And so, I got into basement waterproofing and still am in that. And, but we've expanded into other things like basement finishing and crawl spaces and making houses more energy efficient. We do insulation and air sealing through our Dr. Energy Saver brand. And we are into roofing and gutters with Klaus roofing systems and gutter shutter. And we have dealers for all of those things. So I started creating products that would give us a competitive advantage because, everybody wants to beat their competitors, right? You want to win. You want to, when you're in a sales situation, it's a competition, right? The customer's getting 3 estimates, let's assume, and they're going to pick the best ones for their own reasons. They don't care about you; they care about their own reasons. So I wanted to say, what are the problems that people are experiencing? What are the shortcomings of my competitors, and how do I invent products or processes or systems that would solve those things, or I can give the customer a better result than anybody else? So, it started slow. You're always getting better at things. But back in 1990, I started calling other contractors around the country saying, hey, I've got some pretty cool products. Do you want to be a dealer for me? And, some of them said, who are you? I've been doing this 25 years. Why should I listen to you? And that sort of thing. And, but we started building a dealer network. And so we have dealer networks and all those services that I mentioned. Now, what I realized was in order for me to make money, I needed the dealers to buy more products. The only way they would buy more products is if they sold more business, right? They sold more work. And I had to do whatever I had to do to help them accomplish that. So, they needed sales help. They needed sales tools. They needed marketing help. They needed more leads, right? They needed production help. But more than that, over sort of all of those things, it's leadership. Right. And the business will never outperform the leader. And so I started working on that. And, many years went by. I'm 61 years old now. And, I've been a contractor for, what is that? 40 something years. But is that right? 30, I don't know, whatever, since I was 17. And in 2016, I created what's called the School of Entrepreneurship. And for my dealers to teach them all of those things, right? From leadership to recruiting to marketing, appointment center, accounting, management training, production service, sales, service, all of it. And so basically, I'm a contractor who helps other contractors succeed, is what I do. And so you say, well, why do you do it? Now, everybody has different whys. And, I think it's important not to do things for external reasons, right? So some people are just trying to look good, right? They want to keep up with their, with somebody else, and they don't want to, be seen by others as unsuccessful. They want to, they want to look like they're successful, and that's the that's the wrong reason. It's the You're looking at it from external, right? So what are they going to think of me, right? How am I going to look to them? And that's not healthy. A little distinction is, say, I want to be successful, and bring it from the inside out and say, I want to see what I can do, right? I want to, I've always had the idea that, well, other people are doing great things, and they're no better than me. Like they're no better than me. If they can do it, I can do it too. I just need to learn what they know, and I need to put the work in. And I've always, so that, that's part of it, is the personal challenge. And then the other thing, for me, like I grew up and, we didn't have any money. My parents got divorced very early, second grade. And then my mother got remarried, and my stepdad, I loved him, but he was an alcoholic, and, that just screws up the whole family. Right. And you never have money, and he's jumping job to job and stuff. And I guess I decided early that for my mother, I was not going to be part of the problem, that I was going to be part of the solution. Right. And so, and I'm sure there's nature and nurture, right? So, God puts different talents in each one of us, and we have to follow that talent. We can't try to be somebody that we're not, right? Some people are made to be, they're really caring, and they're caring for other people. Other people will go out and slay the dragon, and other people, will work hard and love it. And other people want to work, think and use their minds and love it. And other people are artists, and, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. So we have to follow that. So being an entrepreneur is not for everybody, by the way. But so, I was an overachiever. God gave me the ability to focus and study and understand and communicate. And I took advantage of those things. And I was an Eagle Scout, and, had a lot of jobs, when I was just a kid. First job, 8 years old, going door to door selling burpee seeds. And learning that, hey, I can make my own money, right? That was a valuable lesson that grows inside somebody's mind, that I can make my own money. I don't have to wait for somebody to give me a job. Now that same lesson on someone else wouldn't germinate, but so, I've always wanted to see how much that I can do. Certainly there's a level of maturity about it. In your 20s and 30s, you want to make as much money as possible, and you want to be successful, and, and have a good story at your class reunion. But as you mature, hopefully you realize that, it's never about the money. And that's what I recognize now. And certainly money is a scorecard, and everybody wants to make money, and your business has to make money or you're going out of business. But it's about who you become in the process, right? Because there's no trailer behind your hearse. Okay. Hearse, you're not taking it with you, in other words, right? Nobody takes it with you. So, what are you going to do while you're here? This is your chance. And that's another thing I've always had, as this idea that life is short, and you have to, if you got something to do, you better do it now. This is your chance. Like, you're never going to be, just like you said before we started, you're never going to be this old again. You're never going to have this day to live again. And lives are made of days. That's it. There is no future, because when the future gets here, it's today, right? Today is yesterday's future. And, it's always today. It's always now. So what are you going to do now? So, I'm 61 now. My main focus is health. I want to stay healthy and extend my productive and active lifespan as long as possible, so I can keep doing the things that I love and have energy throughout the day and stuff. But anyway, I've been talking a while.
No, I love it. They're very good insights that people need to understand. Like I agree, the life is short thing hit me. I'm 41, so it hit me about 15 years ago, and I'm that's pretty young to hit that. I don't know a lot of 25-year-olds, 28-year-olds, whatever what I was, to realize that those things that you said are very true. And I did a lot of failing for 10 years, but I knew I wanted to be. I kept trying to be an entrepreneur, kept enduring, learned a lot of lessons, and realized that it's going to be hard. It's not going to get easier. You better start learning some processes, some systems. You better put the right people in the right seats. Like you better learn and get better. Otherwise, you just keep failing if you don't learn from your mistakes. So yeah, I mean, I just again thinking of anything that's hard. We talked about CrossFit a little bit. I did CrossFit for a long time before we hit record. I just got injured, so I've been injured for 2 months, and so health has been at the height of my mindset of like, I just want to get healthy. Well, now I got to have surgery in 2 more months. Like, I think people need to realize that the money thing is what people chase, but it's not what they should be focusing on at all. There's so many other things that are in front of financial success that you said it best. You're not gonna. There's no trailer behind the hearse. Like there's nothing. So try to build meaningful relationships, meaningful businesses. That type of thing should be focused on more. And in general, I think a lot of contractors are very short sighted. They'll think in this year or this quarter or a 2-year window, or what are you going to do in 5 years? I think people need to think in longer terms because they would make different decisions and they make wiser decisions if they had that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
And that's just, we're 20 years apart, but I see that becoming more and more important to me to make you got one day, you got today, but I really want to reduce the mistakes I make and in all aspects of my life. And so making the right decisions is very important, but also reducing the regret is another huge thing that I'm laser focused on for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there. Money is what most people think is going to make them happy. And to a degree, the difference between $50,000 a year and $100,000 a year is huge. The difference between 100,000 and 200,000 is, significant. The difference between 200,000 and 300,000 is smaller. 300,000 and 400,000 is smaller still, and so forth as you go. And, I'm to the point where, I have 3,000 employees. We have a big company here, and we have offices in 35 states, and money is not going to change my life, right? I don't do it for money, although money's great. I love money. I mean, I don't dislike money, but I know it's not going to change my life at this point. So then, you're faced with, all right, well, why are you doing what you do? And people ask me that, why haven't you sold your company? Like it seems to be fashionable to sell your company these days. And that's not why I'm here. That I'm the steward of all, for all my employees that I love. They've, so many of them have been here for decades, and I want to take care of what I built, and I want to, I'm thinking long term. And but in the beginning, it's hard to tell somebody who's starving that, hey, I just need a job to make payroll this week. Don't talk to me about, meaning and who I become. Dude, I got checks out that are gonna bounce if I don't collect some money here. And there's going to be game over. So, I get that, but it's a leadership challenge, right? So when if you're a roofer, if you're banging nails, okay, you're on a roof, that's one thing, right? But then as soon as you open a business and you say, I'm the owner of this roofing company, that's a whole different world, okay? And many business owners, many entrepreneurs, many roofers would try to be the roofer and the leader at the same time. and that just going to drive you crazy because you don't have enough hours in a day. I mean, I guess you got to decide what you want to be when you grow up. If you want to be a roofer who does one job at a time, and you have your crew, and you make payroll, and you're running around, giving estimates, and managing jobs and ordering materials, and you got your one crew. Okay. If you can master that life, cool. You know, that's what you want to be when you grow up. But a lot of times everyone strives for growth, right? They think more is better. More is going to make me happier. More is going to make me more money. Well, I've seen $25 million businesses lose money. I mean, I've seen it a lot, you know, and a lot of times a business will, you go to trade shows and you say, oh, so and so is doing 25 million a year, so and so is doing 50 million a year, blah blah blah. If you could see these guys P&Ls and balance sheets, you wouldn't want to trade places with them. Okay. And then one day, poof, they explode and they're gone overnight, leaving a trail of wreckage and people and disappointments and broken promises behind them. That's not me. That's I believe that you need financial literacy, right? So if you're going to be the owner, you need to understand what an income statement and a balance sheet is, and you need to understand how to read them, and you got to have somebody preparing them for you every month. Okay. You need to understand marketing. Okay. You need to understand sales, and you got to train other people, have a system where you could train other people how to sell. Because if you don't, this is what happens. They go out, you hire people, and they go out and they undermeasure the job, and they, give people discounts and so forth to be the lowest bidder so that they can get the job. They're selling on price. They're making a commission, but you losing your ass. Okay. And that goes on long enough, it's game over. Okay. You are out of business. If they constantly undermeasure by, a square and a half, and they constantly are giving breaks and, giving people discounts and not charging them for flashings and, details and so forth. They're just trying to be the low bidder. They're selling scared. They don't know how to be the high value, low risk provider to that customer. Right. And how to beat, the other guys. And I've seen literally $100 million roofing companies blow up because that went unchecked. And the sales manager is in on it. He's getting his bonus on gross sales, right? So he doesn't care. He's looking the other way, right? And it's just crazy. So you need to be smarter than that, and you need to be able to sell even if you're the highest price, right? And I don't mean high pressure, sales, but I mean high value, low risk. What I mean is the customer perceives high value from your company, more value than anyone else. For example, in Klaus Roofing Systems, we train our salespeople to be, they're probably going to be the highest price, not always, but they're definitely going to be in the higher end. And the customer will perceive that our price is higher, but it's the lowest cost per year of service. So we differentiate with the customer. Are you looking for the lowest cost or lowest price or lowest cost per year of service? And we get them thinking, oh, wait, what do you mean? And we talk about quality, and that wind and wind-driven rain is the enemy. And we install a roof that will, resist wind and wind-driven rain better than any other roof. And our goal is to get those shingles to die of old age on your roof and not die a premature death from, a storm that happens, 41 months after we put the roof on. No, obviously you can't guarantee that. There's always a big enough storm, right? And then low risk is meaning if I'm a homeowner, I feel like if I buy from you, I'm not going to make a mistake. And the other guys, they're a lower price, but I don't know, it's a little sketchy. The guy did a drive-by, and he emailed me a proposal. This is the new thing, right? Emailing proposals. And in the roofing industry, it's rampant because of, satellite imagery, right? They can get everything they need to get without even talking to the homeowner, right? And give an estimate. So, but, in the end, houses don't buy things. People who own houses buy things. And you need to sell the job on the house to the homeowner, not trying to, just just bid it, right? So in the roofing industry, you want to get business by being the low bidder. You're going to win jobs and win some battles and lose the war. I've seen a lot of roofers who get to be retirement age, their knees are shot, their backs are shot, and they have nothing to show for it. And
Yeah.
they're just selling their trucks and their ladders for at the auction, and it's sad. So if you want it to be different, then you got to learn how to run a business, and particularly how to sell, how to hire good people, how to keep them, how to be the kind of person that other good people will work for, right? Because if you don't have your stuff together, if you're a mess, if you lie, if you get pissed off and start yelling at people when you're having a bad day, if you think it's all about you, if you don't keep your promises, if you have no character, other high performers are not going to work for you.
Yeah.
Even if you,
If you don't pay your commission, if you don't pay your guys, like, yeah, all those
yeah,
things.
right. And if you happen to get lucky and hire a high performer, they're going to realize high performers can work anywhere.
Hmm.
And when they realize that you're the leader and you don't have your stuff together, like this dude doesn't have his act together, he's not going to take me to my family to the promised land. I'm going to go work for somebody who's a better leader. So what happens is the poor leaders wind up with all the poor employees, and the good leaders wind up with all the good ones, right? Because they don't tolerate the poor employees, right? And then the team makes all the difference.
Yeah. So Johnny Neal introduced us. He said that you say, is this accurate? You say, it's more important about who, not how. Is that one of your quotes that you say a lot? You're kind of alluding to it right now. You're like, you're just, who is way more important than how it gets done in the beginning, at least.
Yeah,
As-
Who Not How is the title of a book by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, and it's a great book. But the idea is that as an entrepreneur, as the leader of a small company, right, or even a bigger company, you get all the problems, right? All the problems. I say, excuse me, but shit flows uphill. Okay, all the problems that no one else could solve get to you, right? And you're responsible for making all the key decisions and stuff. And so when we're small, there's nobody else. So we get in this pattern of making all the decisions and trying to do too much. But that doesn't scale because you only have 24 hours in a day, and you got a family, you got to sleep, you got to have some fun, exercise and stuff. And what gets crowded out is all those other things, right? And you wind up working more, working more, working more. And, you have this attitude when you're young, it might work. When you're single, hey, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll work 7 days a week. I'll work, 15 hours a day. Yeah. Okay. Good for you, buddy. Let's see how that works out long term. Right. But in any event, to whatever degree that you learn that if you work harder and longer, that you can get the results of 2 or 3 people. If that's your winning strategy, it becomes your losing strategy. So that doesn't scale, right? It only goes so far. So what we have to do is learn how to build a team, right? Right, be the leader of a team and think about who, not how. Like a problem comes to us, a dilemma comes to us. We need more sales. We got to get this job done. And our instinct that we learned growing up in the business was, I got to work harder. I got to work longer. I got to work nights. I got to work weekends. I'll get it done. I'll jump in, and so forth, right? But instead of saying, how am I going to get this done? You got to say, who can do this, right? Who can do this? Who can I get to do this? Who can I get on my team? And that's the job is, we call that the transition in our School of Entrepreneurship, which people can get to at discoversoe.com, Discover SOE, School of Entrepreneurship, but discoversoe.com. But so, yeah, it's about making the transition from being a contractor to being a leader.
Yeah. You kind of painted a picture of, if you want to be small, and I did this for years, and I figured out, it took me too long, honestly, to figure this out, what you kind of painted a picture of. And then of the one guy with the one crew running around, order materials, all those things, not having any systems in place. And I was that guy for a while. And then you also painted a picture of like you get too old, your knees break down, you can't do anything. You just got to sell your bladders. Well, whether you like scaling or not, whether you want to sell your business or not, what you're kind of leading on to is what I see a lot, where it is actually more risky and you're more volatile to be a one man show, which a lot of guys are. They're a one man show. They do wear all the hats because if you go down, you can't do anything. You can't climb roofs. You can't, like right now, my Achilles is torn. I can't even drive. Like, that's a way more risky situation than having the who in the right spot, even if it's a small team. And I see this over and over again. And then you got accounts receivable. You got all these things that you got to get done, but you can't deliver because you can't do the things to get it done. So I love all the things you're saying because it was a light bulb for me almost 10 years ago where I was like, I can't have this job. It's what I had. I didn't have a business. I had a job. So I needed to actually create a business with people, the right people in the right places. And I love the who, not how. Like finding the who is hard. It can be really hard. And also you can feel like I can't pay for those people. You can't afford not to pay for those people. You've got to figure out a way to increase sales, to increase profit mainly in the sales, and then have those people making more revenue and profit for your company. Like it's super important. I talk to a lot of guys all the time who just want to stay small, but they don't realize how risky that is, as opposed to the risk of hiring people to put the right people in the right seats. That's what I just see that someone I'm so thankful that you're telling these stories and talking about these analogies because I see it so many times and I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall. I'm like, guys, I promise you need to do this. You need to do this.
Yeah, I'll tell you some other problems in the roofing industry that, some people that watch this podcast might be like, whoa, don't say that. But I'm just going to say it, man. I mean, and, I think a lot of people will, the light bulb is going to go off. But there's some problems. First of all, storming is not a business model as far as I'm concerned. Storming, you're waiting on a storm, right? You're not a salesperson, you're an order taker. You're just first to the door, right? And then you're dealing with insurance companies who, you got to play their game, to win. And I'm not saying you can't build a business on it. So some have, but you certainly can't scale because, what if there's 2 years without a big storm,
Yeah, there's no predictability in the actual scaling, the growing. And it really, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, even so the Athens, Georgia branch was all retail on no storms. The Savannah, Georgia is on the coast. So there's storms. We had insurance, but we still treated it like a retail operation because we knew we wanted to grow correctly and not rely on the storm and not, we had to play the insurance game, but we wanted to still treat it like an actual business and not order takers. And that we played on our terms and our customer is our customer. The insurance carrier is not our customer. Like that kind of mentality that I agree. A lot of roofers are going to hate that, but they really need to understand, going back to what I'm saying, don't think in a year or 2 or 5 years even. Like you're not going to look at different markets like Denver and Minneapolis and Texas. They go up and they'll do $40 million and then $2 million. Like what are we doing here? Like that's not a business at all.
The thing is, like, I think long term, and I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody that is associated with me, employees, customers, vendors to win, right? And how am I going to hire all these employees and then let everybody go? And, like, how is that win for them? It's not my thing. So here's a pro tip for anybody starting a business. Don't put your future in the hands of a third party, insurance company, government, builder. Okay.
Yep.
If you work for a builder, you will, whatever you're doing, if they're the builder, they're the developer, and you're the sub, you better be the lowest bidder. You're out, and as soon as somebody else comes along and wants to work for wages, you're out. If you work for an insurance company, your future is not in your hands. What they're doing now, they're changing their policies and then if you work for the government or a government program, like in our insulation, side of the business, we refused. We never have, but they're constantly funding our competitors to do crap work, and nobody cares on the back of the taxpayer. But we're not going to do that because they could pull the program at any time and we're done, you know. But anyway, let me tell you the next thing wrong with the roofing business. It's kind of a double-edged sword, is subcontractors, you know. I mean, let's just face it, okay? It's a big way to, you know, to avoid workman's comp, and to, you know, to avoid liability, and to, you know, get labor, you know, cheap, and get crews when you need them, and then when you don't need them, say, sorry, buddy, you know, we don't have anything for you, amigo. I love immigrant workers. Okay, I love them. Okay, that's not why I'm saying this, but the reason I'm saying this is that, I mean, it's good. There's definitely benefits to the roofer. Definitely benefits, no question. Okay, but the problem is that you may not have control of quality, right? And so you've if you're gonna use subs, you've got to make it work for you by having, like, if I'm the high value, low risk provider, and I'm promising a customer a better roof, I can't just hire any sub and say, go do what you always do for everyone else. Like, I can't do that. I got to have higher standards, different materials. I've got to have a project manager on staff and make sure they do it our way. Right. Another problem, and this is going to be absolute heresy to
Can't wait.
some, but
Can't
man,
wait.
I'm just in a mood, is the manufacturers and the distributors got, you know, are controlling, you know, the roofing companies, right? And they just want to sell their materials. Okay. They don't care about you as long as you're buying their shingles and sending, you know, and paying your bill. Okay. And they give you rebates and they give you trips, and they're going to wine and dine you and stuff. And they're going to say you're a platinum or whatever, you know, kind of roofer. They never gave you any training whatsoever. Okay. So how could you be a platinum, you know, roofer? The customer thinks that, oh, you're special, you know, and that's what they want. But they've never given you any training whatsoever. Okay. Not how to run your business, not how to shingle a roof. Okay. They haven't. And then they'll appoint, you know, 10 platinum roofers in your area. So how does that make it special? Basically, they just want you to buy their stuff, and that's their way of controlling you. Okay. Now, you know, is it horrible? I mean, you got to use somebody's shingles. Okay. But the problem is it discourages innovation, right? You know, you just do it their way, and, you know, and is it a bad thing? I mean, you know, obviously their warranties are all full of holes. They don't warrant anything, you know. And I don't know. It just seems to be a constriction, a restriction. And if you want truly to put a better roof on, you know, you have to break the chains of that. I mean, you're going to use materials from somewhere. Okay. And we use Ico Dynasty shingles. We know that that is the best shingle out there that is made. And that's what we use at Klaus Roofing exclusively. And we use our own underlayments and our, you know, our own, you know, roof boots and ridge vents. And, you know, we take the best in each category. We don't use somebody's system because they want to sell us everything. Right. But, you know, the way that institution is, it just, you know, it's all about buy my stuff, buy my stuff. And even if my stuff isn't the best, even if, you know, even if they made their product cheaper, you know, to save money and to make more money and so forth, you know, you're stuck on the sauce when you say, I'm with, you know, this is who I am. And I put their logo on the side of my truck, you know, that's, now you're stuck, you know, but yeah, anyway,
No,
innovation.
it's huge. You're saying the same thing that I hear from a lot of other, like, private equity backed or just larger companies that are in the roofing space. They say the exact same thing about the manufacturers and distributors. They have then they just stop doing it because they would rather get better material to not do the system and then offer their own company backed warranty. I've seen this so many times. There's one huge company near me that's doing this now. They were just bought by PE and they are doing that exact thing. They were like presidential blah 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 from major manufacturer, and now they're like, nope, they don't honor their warranty. We've done X amount of these super premium warranties. They don't honor the warranty. and we're just doing our own warranty now. And I know several different, like, you know, elite, platinum, all the things, and they're doing the same thing where they get you. And it goes back to what you're saying about numbers. If you don't know your numbers, if you don't know your accounting, you're every month, someone's not reconciling all of your pre-job, post-job budgets. You don't know your profit margins. A lot of these guys will rely on those rebates from the manufacturer as their like part of like they're relying on them. There's not like a bonus money. They're relying on it. So then they have no way out. They can never sell that premium high trust, what you're saying, service because they're stuck with this manufacturer. And if they leave the manufacturer, they lose all their profit.
Yeah. So the manufacturer is treating the contractor like a sales agent for them
Yes.
that they don't have to take any responsibility for, don't have to pay. If the guy fails, we'll just get another one,
Yep.
So, but I think that, and that's why I'm saying there's disadvantages to that because your future is partially in someone else's hands, right? So, so you've got to think for yourself and say, how am I going to give a better roof to my customers? In the end, when producers are competing with each other for the customer's business, the customer wins, right? But you don't want to win by giving the cheapest price. Anybody can do that. And that's, if you're not making a margin, making money, then you're wasting your life, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me qualify that. So an entrepreneur spends the beginning part of their career being desperately underpaid so that if they get it right, they can spend the last part of their career being wildly overpaid. And if they get it right is a big question mark, right? Not everybody who starts a roofing company, and let's face it, there's a small barrier to entry. All right. You buy a ladder and a nail gun and, or you don't even need that if you use subs and you could open up a business tomorrow. But, in the beginning of a business, you're not going to make any money for a lot of reasons. You're investing in people, you're hiring people and you're having to train them. And it takes a while before they become productive and stop making mistakes. You're investing in their education, and then some of them don't work out and you have to let them go. And then, you have to start all over with other people, right? How can you have employees with 10, have been with you for 10 years when you're 2 years old, right? So you're investing in your people, you're investing in your capital equipment, in equipment and trucks and trailers and things, and just to buy one truck, it's, you're going to spend $60,000 on a truck. And if you made 10% profit, in that early stage, you'd have to do $600,000 worth of business, make 10% worth of profit and stick it into the truck. And you'll still have nothing, right? And so you're investing in capital equipment. Now it's depreciable. And so now your tax return says you owe money for taxes. You're like, I didn't make any money. Where's the money? And they're saying I owe taxes. I'm going to fire my accountant. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. But you depreciated some things, and that's why it shows that you made money and there's no money there. You're investing in receivables. Some people don't pay on time. Some people don't pay you at all. You're investing in your marketing and your brand and so forth. And hopefully it's good to begin with. So you're investing in all these things and your own education. And so you don't make money for a while. And, a lot of people in this world of choice, we have choice of everything, we could work anywhere, be in any business, sell anything, buy anything, relationships, places to live. We have unlimited choice these days. And people will, spend 5 years trying to be a roofer and then jump horses and say, no, I'm going to be a florist. And, oh, no, I'm going to open a restaurant. And, oh, no, I'm going to join my cousin Vinny and we're going to start an X business. And you never get good at anything. Like you're throwing away your education. All those times when you failed, which is really another word for learning, if you're observant, you're throwing that away. So I've been a contractor for, 40 years and, I've each year builds on the next, right? So I don't make too many mistakes. My mistakes are different mistakes and bigger mistakes now, but I don't make the same mistakes as I used to. And I know how to run, a home improvement, home repair business. So there's something to be said for sticking with it and learning and increasing, your learning curve. And that's why we have our Discover SOE, School of Entrepreneurship.com, that you have basically a university level training course, okay? Something that they don't teach in college. And we're going to teach you everything that a home improvement contractor, home repair contractor, roofer, for example, needs to know to be successful. And it's a 3.5 year course. If you watch one, say, average 12-minute video a day online on your phone, you can listen to it. There's exercises you print out, but then you listen to me delivering the exercise. It would be 3.5 years. But it's not a race. It's not something that you're not going to become a butterfly overnight. It's a process, and it's who you become. And once you learn all these things, then you never forget them, right? If you're learning and you're putting it in place, and you're learning, putting in place, putting in practice, you're stubbing your toe, you're figuring it out, you're learning more, you're putting in place. And in the end, you come out, we've had contractors. I think of one roofer who was doing $500,000 a year. It was a 45-year-old company, and now they're doing 18 million. Another guy, kind of the same thing. He's an immigrant. He was doing 600,000 or so, joined the School of Entrepreneurship, and in 3 or 4 years, he's doing 12 million. So, those kinds of things are available, but your business is never going to outrun you, right? Your own abilities, right? If you have, a business will rise to the level of its weakest key function. So you could be really good at marketing, you could be really good at production, but if you're not good at sales, that's going to be your limiting factor. You can be really good at sales, really good at marketing, but if you're not good at, if you're not good at production, if you're not good at marketing, if you're not good at recruiting, right? If you don't understand the numbers and you flub the accounting, you understand what I'm saying. That the weakest key function is going to be set the level, the height of your growth. So, for an employee, you can have weaknesses, and a leader's job is to put people in positions where their strengths are valued and their weaknesses don't matter. But as a leader, you can't have critical weaknesses, right? You better know the numbers. You better know how to market. You better know how to sell. You better know how to, to manage production and know how to hire, So, and there's a lot of wrinkles in between all of those things. So that's the challenge. You got to put all the pieces together. So, it's like, okay, year one, I'll draw this out here. So you got, year 1, year 2, year 3, and it looks like nothing's happening, right? But you're learning, you're getting better. And there may be more years here. It might be more like 15 years, but then you're putting all the pieces together. You're eliminating your weakest key function, and turning it into a strength. And then, wow, things go. And so here you're doing, $2 million a year, and you're making, 2% profit, which is grocery money. And over here, you're doing $10 million a year and making a 17% profit, which is 1.7 million. So the question would be, when you get here, did you make 1.7 million in that year, or are you being rewarded for all the years that you were learning and reinvesting into the future, right? And I believe in long-term thinking. I think that that's what consumers need from businesses that think long-term, and we need leaders who think long-term, because they're going to make better decisions for everybody. And so we can teach home improvement contractors in particular how to do that.
As a product of the opposite of go to school, go to traditional university, get a job. That's what we're told for years and years. I'm super excited about what you guys offer. I love hearing it. I wish I could go back, and I can't go back, but I can hopefully spread the news. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. I have a more optimistic outlook on their future for their profession. And maybe none of them are entrepreneurs, but these skills And this knowledge of how difficult it is to create a business like this, a functioning machine, is a super valuable thing. It's something that I'm very thankful that you guys even have in place. Like it's something that I think that contractors watching and listening, they need to understand. Like this is if you're in that, because it took me that bar graph is very similar to my 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 business. It was like, oh, year 4, we're actually making money and there's net profit. It took me a while. Some people are just way faster. Some people are slower, whatever, different markets for different people. But just the fact that you have a process in place and it's, it's very straightforward of watching. Talk about that a little bit more. Watching an average 12-minute video for 3.5 years. Is that essentially it? Or talk to me more about what it takes to get through the program.
Okay. From the inner, the outer. Everything that's going on in your life is a manifestation of how you thought, how you're thinking. Okay. And that's why we say a business will never outperform the leader, right? So from the inside, the outside, from the unseen, the seen, from the invisible, the visible. Okay. So you are the source of all your wealth. Okay. Unfortunately, you develop some bad thinking habits and some things that you think are true that are not true. And I would probably reckon that most of the people, if you're a contractor watching this, you're at your limit, right? You're stuck in some form, right? You think, I can't work any harder. I can't work any longer. I don't know how to get good people. I don't know how to, we can't sell, these guys are beating us or, whatever. Okay. You're at some sort of limit, right? Or a number of limits. So in order to change your life, you got to change your thinking. Now, in order to change your thinking, you have to change what you're learning. Okay. What you're learning. And there's other things you could change, like your environment, right? Where you hang around. Do you hang around with anchors, with people who are negative, with people who are going nowhere? Do you waste a lot of time? Do you have beliefs that are, limiting you, that you're not challenging, right? And you swear you're right. So we've got to change those things. And so when you change what goes in, okay, you're starting to change how you think and the decisions that you make. And now you see things in a new way, right? You're making new and better decisions. And so that's the process, right? That's the process. You're the source. From the inner, the outer, you're the source of your wealth or of your poverty. Okay. And that's why we need to work on you. In our School of Entrepreneurship, we have about 90 different classes or exercises. And each exercise has a printed, you could print out the PDF, okay? And you could follow along. And the shortest one is like 6 pages. It's not all fine print, it's colorful and there's pictures and things, okay? The longest one is probably 35 pages, okay? But average about 18 pages. This is a class. This is about a certain thing, certain part of marketing, a certain part of leadership, a certain part of sales. And then for each class, there's a series of videos that we broke into about 10 to 14 minutes. So that they're in bite-sized chunks. Now you can listen to or watch 3 or 4 a day, if you're an overachiever, okay? Or, you could just do 1 a day, right? And it's on a mobile app so that you can get it on your phone. You could listen while you're driving, okay? And it doesn't let you go to the next one until you finish, this, right? And those videos are me delivering this material, right? Either directly to you or to a live class. So you're like, sitting in on this live class because I've taken, dozens and dozens and dozens of contractors through the class live. Okay. And, that's the process, right? So you're learning how, I would say half of the material is about you, about the leader, and half of the material is about what we call our business machine. It's about marketing. It's about sales, appointment center, recruiting, production, service, accounting. And there's also training materials for your team. So a lot of times as a contractor, if we hire people and, Joey's been with me for 2 years now, I need a production manager. I'm Joey, you want to be production manager? He says, yeah, man, that'd be cool. He doesn't know anything about managing people. He doesn't know anything about managing schedules and resources and stuff. So we're going to teach Joey how to be a good production manager. We're going to teach Tammy how to be a good appointment center manager. We're going to teach, your salespeople how to be great salespeople. We're going to teach somebody how to be a great recruiter, right? Bigger companies, by the way, have their own recruiters, right? If you have 50 people or so, you'd be well served to hire a recruiter who's doing nothing but trying to find the best people to get them on your team, right? And then you're allowed to drop the low performers. So many contractors, I don't have enough people, I'm so busy. You can't let anybody go, even the low performers, right? But you want to constantly be upgrading your team. And I'm not saying you hire people with an eye to get rid of them one day, but the reality is you're going to make some bad hires, especially before you learn how to do it right. And you're going to have to fix that. And you're going to have to find better people. But anyway, so that's what the school is. Your business will not get better until you do. So you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, you owe it to your team, you owe it to your customers to be the best leader that you can be. You advancing is not about you buying the next generation of nail gun. Okay. It's not about you learning how to flash a dormer better. It's not, it's not about you running more leads it's about you becoming a better leader. That's how you scale. That's how I have, 3,000 employees and, my phone hasn't rang since I've been here talking to you. Okay. Cause I have great people, cause I've, developed, a great team that, I got enough people doing the right things in the business that they run the business. I just care for them. I just make sure nothing bad happens financially. I make sure that we're positioned strategically in the marketplace with our brand and our marketing, and our pricing is right, and that I've got the right people doing the right things, and that's my job now. And capital allocation, just making sure we have the right resources, the right equipment, and we dedicate enough money to marketing and these things. So that it's a whole different job. I'm still a contractor, but I'm not. I haven't done the work in decades. And by the way, I don't work weekends. I haven't worked weekends unless we have an event or something. But I haven't worked weekends in 30 years. So you know, the idea that you have to work harder to be successful is a myth, and that is your losing strategy, not your winning strategy. Gutting it out. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work longer. That's just going to kill your family.
Yeah.
And it's going to burn you out, and you're going to be eating fast food all the time, and you're going to have a pot belly, and you're going to be, miserable. you know, it's you got to take care of yourself, right? And you got to have fun, and you got to take care of your family, and do cool things. And so some of the cool things that I do cost money. Like I do incredible adventures, and my personal mission statement is an extraordinary life of shared experiences. So, I like to do cool things and take my friends with me, different groups of friends, maybe the whole company. I'm not talking about the whole company on this giant trip or something, but have an awesome party, or, like my facilities. I have 13 buildings on our campus. We're the largest employer in our town and largest taxpayer as well. And our buildings are super high standards, but they're really fun too. There are a lot of natural light. We have in building one where I'm sitting, we have themed workspaces. We have a tree house where 26 people sit in this space decked out like a tree house. We have a tree fort. We have a space station. We have a 1880s mining town. It's called Boomtown. We have a vintage industrial space called the Forge and Anvil. We have an old, like, presidential library space, and we have a modern space in the front of the building where I'm sitting right now. But this is all, because it's cool, because it's fun, because, we don't want to be bored. We don't want to be stuffy. We want to, experience life and have fun together, and, and have a great place to work. So when you're successful, you can do those things. If you're busted, you can't you can't do cool things, So, going to Baja, I've raced in the Baja 1000. It's the longest nonstop point to point race in the world in Mexico. It's in Mexico in November every year. I've been in it 11 times now, and I've won it on. I'm one of only four people that's won it on two wheels and four. I won with my son one year, so my son and I were a team. It was awesome. So people can watch Into the Dust on YouTube.
Oh,
There's
I've watched it. I've started watching them.
yeah. So Into the Dust on YouTube, and then I had my knee replaced. So I've done some long races, but not 1,000 miles. Takes a tremendous amount of training to be able to do that. I'm the oldest finisher of the Baja 1000 on a dirt bike solo in the Ironman class when I was 54 years old. But now I'm on four wheels in a side by side, a UTV, and I'm going to Dakar, which is it's a race in Saudi Arabia that is 14 days of racing, 6,500 miles total, and it's far and away the longest race in the world. You do about 500 miles a day for 14 days in a row. There is a rest day in the middle, but yeah, it's brutal. But the landscape is epic. I mean, you can see the highlights. Dakar, Dakar. You can see the highlights on YouTube, and it's named after the capital of Senegal. Senegal is a country on the coast in Western Africa, and it used to be Paris to Dakar. Started in Paris and it went to Dakar, Senegal. And then the bad guys were, robbing the racers, stopping them and robbing them. So they moved it to South America for a few years. And then for 7 years now, it's been in Saudi Arabia. But, this costs money, and I'd never be able to do this sort of thing if I didn't have money. And it's not I think you have to have a healthy attitude toward things. You don't want to let things swallow you up. You don't want to have to. Some people buy a new car because they want to be seen in a new car, and they want to feel good about themselves if they're driving a new car every year. Me, honestly, today I'm driving a 2015 Escalade that I love. I have a 2015 Chevy pickup that I love. I have a 2018 Tesla that used to belong to my son, and I love it. I have a 2018 Corvette. I've always had Corvettes in my life, and I'm like, well, why do I want a new one? This one's beautiful. I love it. And I have a 1955 Pontiac,
Nice.
and a bunch of dirt bikes. But yeah, I mean, you have to be prudent. I think with respect to money management, the last exercise in the School of Entrepreneurship I wrote last year, and it's called Creating Wealth: How Your Money Can Make More Money Than You Do. And so if you invest your money and you understand compound interest and you don't do anything stupid and lose it, you can get to the point where your money makes more money than your company does. So that's true financial freedom, right? You can just, even if it all blew up, right? And, you still have your money. But the basis of that is spending less than you earn. Some people spend as much as they earn and more, and they're in debt. A lot of people look like they have a lot of money, but if you looked at their personal finances, they're in debt, and they have big payments on everything and so forth. I don't like debt, in my business or my personal life. I mean, that's another discussion, but in general, I don't like debt. And, but, if you learn how to invest your money, like why are we in business? Okay, one reason is to make money. One reason is to see if we can do it. It's a personal challenge to see how far we can go, to see how good of a person we can become, right? If we can get all those people to do great work and not hate us and love us and stay at this company. I mean, that's like the ultimate vote. Like, you're doing good things, right? Customers are happy, but when you make money, then you want to invest it. So a lot of people, don't know what to do with money. I didn't go to college, and I had to learn these things along the way. Do I buy, income property? Do I buy commercial buildings and rent them out? Do I, invest in the stock market by myself? Do I buy Bitcoin? What do I do? And so I've learned all these things over the years and what not to do, and what's work, what you're buying. It's not an investment, it's another job, and and all these things. So it's just getting smarter, right? Getting smarter and learning, through other people who have done it. There's a lot of gurus, especially in roofing. I noticed I went, when I got involved in the roofing business, I went to the first shows and I was like, look at all these guys that they're like charging these people, fees and stuff. And, that's cool and all. I mean, nothing wrong with consultants, but these guys haven't done it. These guys aren't doing it. That guy failed at doing it. And now he's trying to be a consultant. And, or this guy did it for like 3 years and then he sold his business or something like that. And I'm like, man, I've done it. I've done it for, years and years and years. And not many people who have done it would bother to write a whole school about it. Right. But I think I'm inherently a teacher. That's what I do with my sales team. I'm a great sales trainer, leadership trainer, and I have I've seen the arc of so many businesses, literally hundreds of businesses. I've watched a leader go through a decade or 2 decades of decisions and false starts and problems, and then the ones that get it right. And I've been doing it myself, and now I own or partner in 40 companies in 35 states that are doing it. And I look at 40 P&Ls every month, right? And I advise them, and they're my partners and my friends, and we all get along great. Some of them are on the, early in their trajectory, and some of them are, doing amazing and have been at it for years. But, so you've got to learn from someone who has done it, right? If you're learning from a theorist, you're going to get theory, and, so it is not a very valuable or implementable.
Makes sense. Well, Larry, it's been super valuable. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and hear your story. I think that a lot of people that are watching and listening will get a lot of value as well. Any last words before we go?
Well, no, just discover SOE. And you'll want to check that out if you're interested in our School of Entrepreneurship. There's a associate of mine, Johnny Neal, is an amazing guy. He can help you and walk you through it and answer your questions and so forth. And then everyone should sign up for thinkdaily.com. So Think Daily is a blog. It's a short sort of message of the day, if you will, all centered around personal development and living a high performance, healthy life. And it's short. It could be a sentence some days. Other days it's 3 paragraphs, but it's short. I think you really like it. And then there's Think Daily for business people, which is, so there's 2 a day that go out: Think Daily and Think Daily for business people. Only weekdays. I've been writing them for 17 years now. Never missed. And I pledge I will never try to sell you anything, and I will never share your email address. Okay, so this is a vault when you sign up for this. And I know that a lot of times we put our email address in something and we start getting bombed with, someone's agenda. But I just put good out in the world. And we have a loyal subscriber base of over 20,000 people that get it every day. And please sign up. It's absolutely free, no risk. And we'll get to know each other through the Think Daily messages. And I think you'll enjoy it.
I love it. Thanks, Larry. And thanks everybody watching the Biggers podcast. Talk to you soon.